Hello everyone, my name is Jeff Hogood. Welcome back to another Draft Today video. So we open our first pack here in our 665 draft. There's actually a number of things in this pack that jump out to me. We have here our Tormented Locksmith, which is a very reasonable Sapphire card. 5 cost, 0/3, double Sapphire, Diligence. Choose one, draw 2 cards, or turn into the Unlocked Aberration, which can be a 10/10 unblockable if you have more cards in your hand than each opposing champion. It's very reasonable. We also have a Call of the Deepwood here, which is just kind of a staple in not only the Conscript decks, but just the wild decks in general in this format. It's a 4-cost Conscript and Ardent Thornrule troop of cost 5. Other cards in this pack that are reasonable are Butcher as well as the Skyspire Scholar, although I'm kind of hard-pressed to first pick a Skyspire Scholar. I think my first picks in this pack are between the Butcher and the Tormented Locksmith. Tormented Locksmith is like a quality bomb, but it's a little bit clunky. Butcher is just like really quality removal. I think I'm going to go ahead and lean on taking the Butcher. It's been a while since I've drafted Blood, and I think it's just probably the highest power level card in the pack. I could see an argument that Locksmith is a higher raw power, but I think Butcher is going to be more consistent, and I'm pretty likely to end up playing this in any Blood deck I play. As we get past this pack, it looks like Common got taken out of here as well, and I can see why. So the rare in this pack is Well of Savagery, which is not particularly great. And then there are a bunch of uncommons in here. I don't even think this is really worth rare drafting at this point. I guess it's probably like 200 platinum or so. This pack's actually really bad. Aside from the Well, the only other card that jumps out at me as being like kind of playable is the Web Scribe, and there's like no guarantee that we're going to end up in Sapphire. I suppose I could pick that, but I could also just like get a little bit of value out of my draft, so I think I'm just going to pick up the Well, considering nothing in this pack is particularly exciting. I think if I was just drafting objective power level, the Web Scribe would be the take there, but this pack, God, these uncommons have been really bad. I don't really like Dream Guide. It's like okay when you get into the Conscript archetype, but because it brings back the 1-cost Drock, but other than that is kind of narrow. Orbiculan I often goes late, and then I end up not playing it. Cavalry requires a Valor, and it's really expensive and clunky in general. Playable cards in this pack are the Arena Regular here, in the Charges Matters deck. Windborne Ascension's a fine Sapphire card. Mosh Pit Gladiator is a fine Blood card. I think I'm going to take the Mosh Pit Gladiator just because it's the only playable Blood card in this pack. We already got a Butcher, so we'll see what comes out of the next one here. As far as this pack is concerned, there's a few Blood cards that are all reasonable. We have Necropolis Garroter, just reasonable 2-drop 2/2. Diligence gets lethal until your next turn. Also a Shadowblade Slicer, though, which is a 3/3, flight for 3. With Scrounge 3, target opposing troop gets -3/-3 this turn. So if you have the Dreadlinks to support it, I think this is one of the most powerful cards in the set. It's like a reasonable evasive threat that's also a piece of removal, so I think I'm going to go ahead and pick him up. This pack doesn't have anything too exciting in it either. There's a Vigilant Duskwing that's kind of an expensive threat, but there's nothing in this pack that really makes you want to move into another shard. Sweep Away is like playable, Blindside is playable, Duskwing is playable. Bulky Biosporus is really kind of clunky unless you have a lot of good sacrifice effects. I think I'm actually going to go ahead and pick up the coin here just in case we end up in Blood Sapphire, because like we'll 10 out of 10 play this coin in the Sapphire deck we play. Alright, there's another Butcher in this pack. This pack's actually pretty good for Blood, right? We've got a Butcher and a Shadowblade Slicer. Butcher's definitely the higher quality card, though, so I'm gonna go ahead and pick that up. Just destroying target exhausted troop usually means you just gotta, like, take one hit from something and then you can kill it unconditionally most of the time. There's a few random things in the format that have Steadfast, but those aren't too particularly popular, so like I said, this card's a pretty high pick priority. I think, this card is second in terms of blood removal only to Strangle in the format, and this actually kills some things that Strangle doesn't, so this pack, nothing too terribly exciting in here. There's a few things. I guess the Conscript archetype seems like no one's really picking it up, but we've also passed a couple of Mesa Caretakers already, which means someone could reasonably move into that. There's a Drock Outcast in here, which is a payoff for having Conscript cards. Again, I'm not sure there's anything in this pack that's worth moving into a second shard for. I've already got the Cercos coin speculatively. I think I'm going to pick up the Windborn Ascension. It's also the only reasonable Sapphire card in this deck. There's a Rock Slider in here of note. We passed an Arena regular earlier, so that could end up being reasonable. There's another regular. I'm going to go ahead and just pick up another coin here. I'm really not a big fan of Windswim, and Archaeoglider is not particularly exciting. Maybe we'll be lucky enough to find an Underworld Officer in our second pack and just move into Blood Sapphire here. Maybe we should have picked up the Web Scribe over the well. I don't know. My $2 will thank me later, I suppose. Probably 2-1 or 3-0 without Web Scribe. This is our first pack that's come back around to us now, and there's no good blood or sapphire cards in here. The Flame Guard's like a reasonable ruby card. There's been a lot of ruby going around, so I guess the fact that Flame Guard came all the way back around, I'm gonna go ahead and pick up the Flame Guard, and we'll just start like picking up ruby as our secondary cards. And if, you know, we end up with more ruby than sapphire, then we'll end up playing blood ruby. Would really like to play these 2 coins though, so hopefully Blood Sapphire pans out, but we only have like 5 playable so far, so we do really need to move into a second shard probably to start getting enough playables up to snuff here. Archaeoglider's like playable when you're short on cards that fit into your archetypes. I'm going to grab this, just a 2/2 flyer for 2. I've played worse cards than Windrake before, though. Inkheart Infuser is not playable. I don't care what you say. I guess I'll take the Zap, because it's like, I guess they could also reasonably grab like the Staunch Resolve, or just like, none of these cards are great. I'm going to take the Galleon Sentinel, just like, we'll just start drafting a Ruby Wild deck here in our reserves. I don't think Underworld Oppression's very good, but maybe we board it in at some point, because we're almost certainly in blood with our Butchers and stuff like that. Opposing troop gets -1/-1 for each race among Underworld troops you control, so I guess I'd board that in against Ada. Seems reasonable against them. Probably have at least 1 Underworld troop and give them -1/-1 on their side. As far as this pack is concerned, I guess I could take a Scraptooth Gnasher, but we're mostly just at like the dredge end of the pack here, just like there's not a lot of good stuff left, so just gotta cut through it and hope the bombs in the next one. I guess we've got 6 theoretical playables, 7 theoretical playables, all of the 2/2 flying spiders for 3. Yep. That's the thing, I suppose. 2 Butchers, 2 2/2 flying spiders for 3. What's not to love, really? This is actually a very good Ruby card. It's a very bad Ruby card. And Dealer's Choice final pick is Ashwood Minstrel. I actually registered this card a number of times in Ruby decks, so Underworld Officer. Underworld Officer. Did not get to will an Underworld Officer into being here. As far as this pack is concerned, the Sapphire cards aren't particularly impressive. We have a Skittering Cultivator here. I wonder if Lorenzo is worth playing. Just like a 4/3/5 for speed that when it comes into play, you get to, or sorry, when you use a charge power, you get to copy it. Like, it feels like Ruby's open from these packs, so like maybe I just like grab that and like we play this Flame Guard and this Fire Soul Gemsworn. That doesn't seem completely terrible. I think the most powerful card in this pack is probably the Chastise, just because it's like quality removal. I could also see just like picking up the Skittering Cultivator here. It's like the best Sapphire card. Yeah, I think I'm actually just going to do that. We need to fill out some of the things in our lower drop here. And you get rewarded with a Webborn Apostate in this pack here, just like a very reasonable Sapphire uncommon. When this enters play, gain a charge for each opposing champion loses a charge, and you gain a charge for charges lost this way. So yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and pick that up, I think. Just like a reasonable two cost play. Wonder if we'll see any of the like the 2/4s that give your spiders rage 1 that actually makes the Archaeo Glider have rage since it's a flying spider, so it's not the worst by any means. Wow, we could have just had 2 Tormented Locksmiths if we would have just like been bold and taken that on the first pick instead of a Butcher. Another Flying Spider, definitely not taking that. I think this pack's between the Tormented Locksmith and the Cheap Shot. I think if I'm into Sapphire at this point, I should just take the Locksmith over a Cheap Shot. I've already got 2 Butchers, hopefully the Cheap Shot will wheel if we're lucky. This pack's actually really good for us. Would love it if the Cheap Shot wheels, the Sage wheels, or the Coins wheel, so I'm going to go ahead and take the Bomb. We could pick up Relentless Zombies, but we could also just like grab this Power and Pain here is plenty reasonable. I think I'm going to go ahead and do that. There's a non-zero chance we play like Theros in this deck and like end up going with the minor Dreadling sub-theme, so we could put like the Dreadling gem on Power and Pain. Another Butcher. How many Butchers is too many? I feel like I don't have a reasonable number in my head. I'd probably play 6 Butchers if I was offered them. So pack it up, pack it in, keep shipping them my way. If we're really lucky, we could still see an Underworld Officer or 2 in this pack. Looks like we're not going to be so lucky. No good Sapphire or Blood cards in this pack. You just go ahead and pick up this Arena Regular to continue building the Ruby deck that's in our reserves here. Wicked Web Spawn. Do we have any Scrounge in our deck at this point? We don't at all. 0. I just like taking another 2/2 flyer here. That doesn't feel like very good in life, but I feel like this is where my life has led me. We just like need a spider for every Butcher. Grolk is like a playable bomb. Exhaust 2 troops you control, exhaust target troop. So yeah, I guess we'll go ahead and pick that up. And that's the last new pack. So we're gonna get our first pack back here in a second from this this table. This deck feels like aggressively mediocre, right? Like I've got 3 Archaeo Gliders here in my playables, and there's like nothing in my reserves I could possibly swap out for them. The Feed the Flames wheeled the Blood's Favor came black around. I guess I'll take the Favor. It's like draw 2 cards, potentially gain some life. Just has a lot of good options. You're making your opponent discard a card at random is pretty terrible, but like drawing 2 cards and occasionally like voiding their crypt and gaining a bunch of life from it is perfectly reasonable. How many Underworld troops do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I probably support Dread deployment in this deck. Doesn't seem like the worst. Probably playing Theros anyways. Just like, how many Flying Spiders is too many Flying Spiders? Sometimes you have to ask yourself. Legionary Form's not the worst. It works well with Shadowblade Slicer. It also puts the troop back into play exhausted, so it can allow you to trigger Diligence on occasion. Careful, Withering Gaze. It's constructed playable, not limited playable. I feel like this third pack's gonna need to be pretty good to us to make this deck out to be reasonable. I guess we've already got like 16 close to playables here, but like I said, the fact that I've got 3 2/2 Flying Spiders does not make me feel good. Furious Smasher's like, I don't know. I feel like anytime I end up with a Furious Smasher in my main deck, I drafted poorly. So hopefully that doesn't end up being the case here. Alright, well, this pack's got some stuff in it. First one here is Might and Malice. Deal 1 damage to target opposing troop. Target troop neutral gets +1/+1 permanently. Assault whenever a troop neutral attacks. If this is in your hand, increase the bolded number by 1. That seems great. It's clunky removal, and it makes one of your troops unbeatable. Would love it if, like, the Astral Sight came back around to us. But, yeah, 10 out of 10 grabbing the Might and Malice here. Hopefully this is the pack this deck needs to get its stuff together and maybe not play the Archeo Gliders. Probably need like 8 playables out of this pack to bump the spiders, but you know, I believe. Mama Yeti in this pack. Someone's going to be real excited about that. Broodnet here is like okay removal. There's also a Jet Cadet in this pack, though. I feel like we're a little bit light on troops, right? I've got 1, 2... Yeah, I really don't want to play this Furious Smasher. Yeah, I'm just going to grab the Jet Cadet. Any game where we curve like Jet Cadet into Archeo Glider, we're going to have a pretty reasonable amount of pressure in the air. And like we've got Mosh Pit Gladiator here is like an evasive threat as well. Yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and snap this Astral Sight off, just like 6 costs. The threshold requirement's a little bit restricted, but like draw 3 cards, gain 3 charges is a pretty big game. It's not quite Consult the Silver Talon's good, but it's very powerful. I wonder what champion we're playing with this deck. I'm really not a fan of the Sapphire champions in this format. Like, the only one with a good starting health total is the Banner champion that lets you draw an extra card each turn. While I do love drawing cards, having your champion tower tied to a banner is a huge liability. Just like having your opponent be able to like board in cards against you that like blow up your banner is just like a huge feel bad. Not to mention you just like don't start generating value from your champion power until super late with that champion. It's probably a Renner deck. Renner and Takahiro are like my go-to blood champions. Well, now we have kind of a choice here. We have the Zenthal Zealot, which is a 3/2 for 2 that whenever it becomes blocked, you put the top card of the opposing champion second to your hand. But we also have another Jet Cadet here. I think I'm going to grab the Jet Cadet just because anyone in Sapphire is going to be pretty happy to pick the Cadet up, and then ideally this Zenthal Zealot is gonna wheel back around to us here. The other cards in the pack that are on Shard, I wouldn't hate the Inquisitor Spite, but it's just not, like, our deck's not really combat trick focused. We're not going to be attacking into blockers a lot of the time, so I'm just going to go ahead and pick this Jet Cadet up. It allows us to apply some good pressure. I just can't say no to drawing cards. Come on now. If that third Astral Sight comes back around, I just won't know what to do with myself. Just actually will have no idea. Probably cut this Illusionary Form. Any deck I get that gets 3 or more draw 3s, I usually almost always play 19 shards, especially when they're Astral Sights instead of such a strict threshold requirement. It's funny how unplayable this card was in 555, and it's just like very reasonable in this set. Dust Scout's like medium. Like can't be blocked by Ardent troops is only okay in this format. There's a lot more Underworld troops than Ardents on average. I think it's probably better than Crackling Tide though. And I don't think Upgrade Tactician is going to be particularly good in this deck. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and grab. I guess Upgrade Tactician like fuels the Shadow Blade Slicer, right? It's just like a 2/4. Yeah, I've got no K number 2s. Yeah, I'm going to grab that. The Shadow Blade Slicer, I think, changes my mind on how I feel about the Upgrade Tactician in terms of how reasonable it is. So, like, this makes 2 Dreadlings when it comes into play, and then we could put the Minor Socket to make more Dreadlings in it, so that gives your Shadow Blade Slicer alone the ability to scrounge. I'm going to go ahead and pick up the Cerulean Lookout here. It's a 1/4 for 2 that lets you look at the opposing champion's hand when it comes into play. It's just like a reasonable card to board in against an aggressive deck because it's helpful at coming up the ground. We fly over in the sky with our Ascension and Jet Cadets and Archaeo Gliders. Arachno Gliders? Arachno Gliders? I said Archaeo Glider a few times, I think. Now it's definitely Arachno Glider, though. Usually a card that's fine on the board. Happy to board that in against Data. Alternatively, we could take this baby at a cutting whoever got past that mama earlier, but I think I'd rather take the Misery just because I'm pretty likely to board it in at some point during my draft. This is our first pack, and the Astral Sight came back around, so yes please. This is basically our deck at this point. I could see an argument. I kind of like playing 19 resources in a deck with this many draw threes in it. Wonder what the cut would be. Could just be an Arachno Glider. It's a double Shock Duster, similar to Cerulean Lookout, just like good early blocker. Calls as a combat trick to give something -1 power +2 toughness. Yeah, another thing I do sometimes is I play 19 shards, but I play 41 cards, which probably is not strictly correct, but it just like gives you a little bit higher balance. This is probably fine playing 19 shards and just straight 40 cards because we have 2 coins. Yep, nothing too exciting in here, just kind of getting down to the dredge end of the pack. I think I'm going to cut a... I'm actually going to cut the Blood's Favor. I think having 3 Astral Sights at the top end of our curve means having Blood's Favor in the middle to like try and draw some more cards probably isn't terribly necessary. A few different bombs here. So deck came together pretty reasonably. We've got 3 Butchers and a Might and Malice for 4 pieces of removal total. We've got 3 Astral Sight for plenty of card draw. We've got some Jet Cadets and some Arachno Gliders for reasonable threats. Powered Pain is either going to have probably just the Dreadleg socketed it. I've put speed in this on occasion, but it's never too terribly impressive, and I think just having a few different ways to enable Dreadlings to make the Shadowblade Slicer consistently scrounge is worthwhile. Same thing with Upgrade Technician. We're going to go ahead and put the Dreadling Gem in him. And then the Moshpit Gladiator will put the Gem of Intimidation so it can't be blocked by troops with power less than it. I'm not going to make you sit through the rest of the pack here as we go. We're going to round this deck out with 8 Sapphire and then 9 Blood Shards to give us a total of 19 resources. Then we're going to go ahead and play Renner as the champion. As always, my name is Jeff Hoagland. Thanks for watching today's Draft Today video. Remember, if you enjoyed today's video, that you should like it on YouTube and share it on social media. You can also support my content in a few different ways past that. You can support our sponsors, which today is Hex Primal. HexPrimal.com. I'd love to sell you some Hex TCG singles, and if you use the code Jeff5 at checkout, you will save not only 5% on your order, but will also help support my content here. Also, don't forget at the end of each week, we have a contest so you can correctly guess the record of all my Draft Today videos, and you can find information on that on my blog at jeffhoagland.com. Thanks for hanging out, folks, and I'll be back tomorrow with another Draft Today.